Reality Check with Craig Price.
Oh, right. Sorry.
I'm an idiot.
4
minutes in and I'm already wrong. I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So welcome to another edition of Reality Check with Craig Price. We've got a great guest today. We got Charlotte Stallings on the show to talk about finances, which is always an awkward subject for people. People don't like to hear that they're spending too much, that they're living beyond their means. Everyone thinks they're going to be a millionaire at some point. It's the American dream. And it's one of those situations where a lot of people just collect this debt. They don't even understand how it happened. Kids nowadays are getting degrees and they're walking out of college and they've got massive debt to start off on day one. And they've got years to get to zero. And then there's some of us who got out of college. Maybe we didn't have debt, but we certainly collected it in our 20s and started to amass that, mortgages and cars and credit card debt, living beyond our means. And I don't think we've been given the tools to properly do that. And a lot of people have the tools, they just don't want to do that. It's just it's a hard thing to do. You always want to live a comfortable life. You want to feel successful. And how do you feel successful? You're buying new things. You've got a nice house. You've got the nice car. You're doing these things. This is proof that you're successful. Visible, tangible proof of success. Buying something to show others. And I'm not saying you should live in a hovel, that you need to eat ramen noodles every night, that you should live this horrible, poor existence where you don't get to ever have any fun or do anything that you want to do. I'm not saying that. But I do think that if you can't afford to go on vacation this year, don't go on vacation this year. Maybe do a smaller vacation this year, or save up and really go on vacation next year. You want a new car, but you can't afford a new car? Well, maybe you should save some money so when you do make that down payment, you can finally get arrangements that are affordable to yourself. This is crazy to go into the situation where you're burdening yourself with debt just so you can have a quality of life, because what happens is the stress offsets the immediacy of having a new car. Oh, I got a brand new car. It's very expensive, but it's wonderful. And you're happy for a couple months. But you got to pay that car off for years. Now, if you can afford that car, it's not going to be a miserable couple of years. But at some point, if you overspent, you're going to feel it, and it's going to make your quality of life decrease. Sometimes those short-term gains are offset by the long-term results. And as always, I'm just thinking ahead. I'm just trying to get you to plan. That's all. Doesn't mean you can't have your dreams come true. Just may take longer than you wanted. Maybe not the way you wanted them. Maybe if you save your money and you can invest in something that'll turn out even better than you thought. But just a little bit of planning. And that's what Charlotte's going to come on. She's going to talk to us about a little bit of planning, what we can do to avoid some of these issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, Charlotte Stallings. Mixing board. Wow. Which is nothing. Mm-hmm. And
but that you know what to do with it.
Oh, yeah,
a big deal.
You know,
again, because of your background.
Well, again, you just plug it in. Mm-hmm. You got the 2 microphones, and that's it.
Wow.
And we can see what we're talking.
Okay.
And so it's really not that difficult.
Cool.
It's kind of a cool thing.
I'm impressed. I think it's awesome.
Well, we're trying.
You're trying good. You're a rock star.
And I'm doing it on a budget as well.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. High five. Yeah, everything on a budget.
Yeah, because I can't go around spending loads of money.
Nor I, no. So I love it. So when you said you'll come and you've got everything, it's like, what is it? But I love it.
Yeah, but when I show the setup, people think it's like this huge, expensive thing. And it's like, nope. Actually, the most expensive thing I have is in a bag over there that I don't use. It's in case there's no way to set up. I've got a high-tech portable one that uses these mics.
Okay, recorder, like
it's a digital recorder that uses the actual XLR mics, which are the really good ones. So I'm here with Charlotte Stallings, and Charlotte, like I said, I do these things on a budget, and there's a reason for that.
Okay,
is because I find that a lot of people exaggerate, or at least live in a world where they believe they make a lot more money than they do. I saw a survey that they did, and they asked people how well off do you think you are, and most people think they're doing very well because they actually spend like that. You know, they have the McMansion that they can't afford.
Right.
They've got the car that they can't afford. They've got the credit card bills piling up. Since you're a financial whiz, you give a lot of advice to regular folks, and you specialize mostly with women.
Yeah, mostly with women, couples, whomever.
But what's the big pothole that you see a lot of people hit when it comes to finances?
I think you're right on the pothole. The biggest one is this. I'm going to be real straightforward and call it a...
Please do. I want you to be as straightforward as possible.
I'm going to be so straight, it's going to hurt.
If you need to swear, go ahead.
I'm not going to cuss, no. But the biggest pothole is what you've just described, and that's a myth or a mindset that it's kind of a spend more than we really have. And I'm going to be real straight with you during this time that we're talking. I grew up in the projects of North Minneapolis, single-parent home. My mom raised us by herself. My dad left when we were young, and it's not a sad song. I don't want anybody to feel sorry, but I grew up in this tough. Things were tough. Lights were cut off. Heat was disconnected. Not once, not twice. I remember that several
government
times.
Cheese?
Government cheese.
We had the government cheese.
No,
yeah.
I think other people had government cheese.
Yeah, we had the government cheese. We had the food stamps. We was waiting in line.
All of it, and the real paper kind of food stamps. Not, they've got cards today, and so I just grew up with a pocket full of food stamps and walking everywhere. First car my mom had, I was 14, started working then, and I was maybe 17, had money to help her with the down payment. I say that just to frame up my background so folks understand who I am.
You're not a trust fund baby.
Oh, heck no. No trust fund baby at all. And in fact, interesting you say that. I thought everybody else in the world, particularly people who didn't look like me, had the same skin color as I did, or lived where I lived, I thought they were all born with silver spoons in their mouths. And so for you to say you had government cheese is like freaking me out right now. Because,
we grew up in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And New Hampshire's not especially when my parents were just lower, I would say lower middle, maybe upper lower. I don't know I do know that they were really conservative with their money. Mm-hmm. We didn't get everything we wanted.
Wow.
I think we got 3 gifts a year for Christmas. Mm-hmm. That's it. We got 3 gifts, and it wasn't the 3 most expensive.
Right.
It was what they could afford. Mm-hmm. And my mom grew up real poor, and I think my dad did too. They both did. But I think because they grew up that way, they really tried to make sure. Even later on in life, in my teens, I was starting to realize that my parents were actually starting to make good money.
Okay.
When I was much younger, they weren't. They were just surviving and trying to get things through. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of mentality, that mindset, which is rare, it helps you in the long run. I think that's why so many Depression era people are so good at saving money.
I think so. I agree with you. And I think 2 things can happen. Either that's ingrained and you hold on to that, and so you grow up as an adult learning to not spend all that you get, whatever that amount is, or you grow up like me where you're deprived from just the basic things for so long. So it's not even about the cheese. It's just everything is a struggle for as long as you can remember. And then you get your first credit card. So I'm like a junior in college, and here comes the first American Express envelope, and I think they just must not know who they're mailing it to. That is such free money, and my biggest thing, Craig, was I was just tired of being broke, just so tired of being broke. So that card launched to so many others, and there was a time in my life when I had 20 different credit cards.
Wow, so you overcompensated.
Oh, Lord, I went from one extreme to the other, complete. Well,
that'll do that. If you have 20 credit cards, you automatically, at some point, will go bankrupt.
Right. And here's what happened to me. There was a long time, because of growing up the way that I did, learning to pinch pennies, and you don't overextend yourself because there's only so much you have. I was able to manage and juggle all of those. So, and some of them were, like 2 or 3 visas from different issuers, sure, and a green and a gold American Express card. And then there were you go to the gas station, and so there was an Amoco card, and there was a Shell card, and there was a Clark card. I'm definitely dating myself.
Clark card? That sounds like
Clark,
a candy bar.
That was like back in the day.
That might be a Minnesota kind of thing.
It was a Minnesota. There was a gas service station, and they came out and pumped your gas. Anyway, so I had all these cards, and I could juggle because it's like, I'll spend on this one, but hold on that one, $30 here for a payment. It's just ridiculous. And then, stress or life happens, and you see more, and you want more, and so I'm going to spend and max out. And it was just not good. So finally got this consolidation loan, got rid of all the cards, maybe had one, but the habits continued.
Yeah.
And if you don't change the habits and the behavior, you're still going to have an issue. And there's a saying we have in the community. We say you can dress them up, but you can't take them out. Or you can take them out of the country or something like that. But the point is, that mentality and that mindset that's still there doesn't matter if you get dressed up, you live in high end of town, you still think a certain way. No. And I was thinking, I'm tired of being broke, tired of being poor. So back to your original question, I think that one of the biggest potholes is people it's the eyes. It's, I want it. I know it's tied to our generation. We want, versus remembering kind of what our parents taught us or what they experienced, what we saw from afar. And I think that can be a big issue. And then we get to a point where we figure it out and we go, that's okay. Yeah, I don't need all this stuff.
For me, it was the Sears card.
Yeah.
Because I'm a kind of a techie person. And now, in the early 90s, when I got my first card, I got the video camera, I got and it's a guy thing, we got the stereo system. Mm-hmm. I had a friend of mine, Dylan, who, he had probably $3,000 worth of stereo equipment.
Wow.
But he had a stolen construction spool of wire as a table. You've seen those?
Yes, I did.
And he's got crates for storage, and he's living on a cot on his mother's, porch that they had sealed off, and so he had more money in that one little 2 foot by 2 foot area than the rest of his entire life.
Stuff. Yep. And it was very defined by that, and I bet you and others thought he is so cool.
Well, no, we didn't think Dylan was cool, but we thought his stereo was cool. No.
Poor Dylan. So yeah, his stuff was cool, and he was cool because he had it.
Right, and it's like, oh wow, he's got all the latest gizmos. And stuff like that. And me, I was fighting for cable in my room.
Yeah.
And I got it finally. And then we moved out into the country, and this will show you how old I am. We moved to a place where there was no cable.
Oh, yeah.
And we couldn't get cable.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't get cable for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I thought when cable came back, or came to the area, I would get the cable back, because that'd be like me giving you a present, and then a year later taking it away. And you never get it back. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought, they're just going to give me the cable back. Mm-hmm. And I never got the cable back because that's another expense. It took a while to get the cable back. And it's not that we were living in a bad area or a bad house. We had a nice big house, and it's just that my parents were like, that's not necessary.
Right.
And I think, especially with the younger generation that's, we'll say, under 25 now, I think they've been given so much stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That I think that's going to be a problem with them. Maybe this recession might help, but from what I can see from all the studies, I don't really see that that's changing their attitudes.
See, and I think a couple of things contribute to that. I was just having this discussion with my mother the other day, coming from where I come from. Well, so let's start back with
Minneapolis?
Well, not just Minneapolis, but...
But you don't have an accent. That's the great...
I know. I've been in Texas now, and when I go to Minnesota, they go, oh, you have a twang. And down here, they still know I'm not.
Oh, where are you
here.
From? Yeah. You're not from around here, are you? Oh, jeez.
I talk like Fargo, that movie from way back in the day.
Don't you know?
Oh, yeah. You sure? Oh, yeah. Oh, hot dish. I'm sorry. I'm just getting tickled here. But coming from where I come and my mother's experience, okay, so she has a mindset, I want things to be better for my children. And then I have that for my daughter. So it's easy to get looped into, here's some stuff, here's some things, because I don't want you to have to suffer. But when I look back and I say, I think some of that suffering helped make me who I am. Not think, I know. I mean, not having put hustle in me, and that's what I call it. I have this hustle factor, and everybody I know who, a lot of people, I'm not going to categorize, but there's this extra hustle factor, this gene or something that we have, and it just lights a fire. And I look at some of my family today, and I just go, wow, are we setting up these children to bang their heads and just really think everybody's supposed to hand them something because it's been provided. And not that this is this bougie, wealthy thing. It's just, I want better. So I think that is going to be an issue for the coming generation. And it does concern me. It really does.
Because I think it's gone from a more of a peer pressure situation to more of a cultural situation. Because before it would be, if you had poor friends, which I had, poor friends, we weren't sitting there trying to impress each other with what we had, because neither one of us had anything. And then the 90s came along, and I think there was so much wealth in the 90s. Because I remember when I was a kid, Air Jordans just came out. It was like 82, 83, and I wanted some Air Jordans. And I told my mother, give me some Air Jordans. And they were like $100 a pair in 1982, which is like, I don't know, $350 a pair now?
A bunch of money, right.
So that's crazy to give some 12-year-old kid. So my mom came home with some Jordache shoes. Some black, I called them Air Jordachis, my Jordache shoes, And of course you get made fun of because,
Yeah.
instead of $100 pair of shoes, you have a $10 pair of shoes.
Right.
But that was more of that was more of a peer pressure situation. Someone I knew had Jordans. Now I think it's more of a cultural thing because I think people who don't even have kids are digging holes for themselves just because they're trying to, I don't know, look successful.
I don't know if it's just. I think it's tied to some generational things too. It's just as you move through this cycle and phases of life and just decide it's not that big of a deal if I don't have what is on the TV.
So pretty much anybody in their 20s, regardless of generation, is going to get to that little phase. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think they do. I think it is just something that we go through and then we're there and then we grow out of that and I don't want to say everybody is going to go through this cycle of experiencing debt and being over their heads and not being able to choose. You said something your mom referenced, is this a necessity? That boils down to need or want. That was a lesson I had to learn. Ask about every purchase.
They're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. And some things are a want and it's A-okay to get them. And I had to learn, again, growing up with this poverty mentality, it's okay to just get something you want. And I struggled with that. I did the big major extreme thing at one point. But I think it's just some phases through life that we have to experience. And to lesser degrees maybe than others, depending upon who you are and your background and what you've been exposed to and taught and learned and experienced. But I think that helps to make some of the character and helps the individual to get to a place where they're able to make some good and hard decisions. And then they're not wavering in those. And it really doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. I really think it gets down to this. Choosing to live within our means or beneath our means if we really want to be able to achieve what we want. Because you don't have to make $1 million to have money saved, to do the things that you want to do. You've got to just choose. And that's the hard part. It's choosing.
Well, and I know that I did have a small situation when I was in my 20s. It didn't get nearly out of hand as a lot of people, but it was
mine.
Well, I don't know. We haven't got to the actual number.
That was extreme.
But for me, it was like only a couple $1,000s. But it's also what you have to realize that I was a stand-up who doesn't make any money, living in New York City where you don't have any extra money, and so it's one of those things where you kind of get in a situation where you get yourself in trouble, but then you learn how to save. And my wife and I still do that now because we just bought a new car, but we paid cash.
Good.
Why? Because it's a lot. It's crazy to pay all this interest, especially on a used car. We bought a new used car. If we're going to lease it, that's a different story because you're paying for the newness.
Right.
When you buy a used car, it's devalued before you get it.
Already.
And then as soon as you pay it, now it's even more, you can't ever get the money back.
Never.
So you might as well just pay cash, get rid of the interest. But it was one of those things where you had to save. And you go without stuff. And it's not like we're eating ramen noodles, but my wife's really good at saving. And what she takes her little, and my dad's crazy about saving. So he has accounts. What he does is he opens an account for any new thing. I have a guitar account.
And that's where he's putting the extra. That's great.
Right. He'll put $1 or $2 a week in the guitar account, and then they'll have a fishing pole account. The problem is he never takes the money out. So he's got like 58 accounts.
Earmarked for certain things, and he's yet to go purchase
because he's in that mindset where even though he's got the money, he's not going to go for it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be generational, but I also think it is also generation specific as far as people born in the 80s.
I agree.
So it's not just people in their 20s always go into the cycle because they all learn. I think in the 80s and in the 90s, since there was such an affluent society, I think we really went crazy and got and
I agree. I remember there was a time in my life where there was just abundance and plenty. I remember even after moving here to Houston, one of the jobs I had was tied to investing, and the markets were crazy. I remember saying to people, all you had to do was be alive. You didn't have to know a thing about investing, just have some money invested somewhere. And you were going to make money. And I remember receiving one of the biggest bonus checks I had ever received in my life. And it was comparable to what I had made a couple full years of working, 1/4 a bonus check like that. It was just, so there are times, there have been and there will be down the road times when it's the era that we're in and such.
But it does come in cycles, though.
It does come in cycles.
Let's see, there was a crash in '87.
Yep.
There was a crash in want to say 98, 99, the dot-com. Did that go?
The bubble? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that burst
leading up to Y2K.
Okay,
yeah.
so 99, 2000. And then, of course, 9/11 caused,
Right.
but that was kind of an outside interference kind of situation. But then 2008. So I think that this whole, because they were telling people you can just invest money. It's like real estate. If you everyone needs land. Well, guess what? You buy some place at a good price, and then people move around you, and it drives the price down. And so you get tired of this. I got to move. And then you go move someplace else. So it's very cyclical, like the stock market.
It is, and that's business. That's our world. And you were talking about when we've had these things happen in our world and what it's done, and meaning what it's done to, say, the stock markets, or just what's happening in the world overall. And people shriek and pull back and say, I'm not going to save, I'm not going to invest, or really am going to save and hold on to every dime that I make. But then we see the swings. So think about 2 years ago with the whole housing market implosion and the Wall Street issues. Well, things are starting to turn around. So we'll go several more years, and there will be something else. I'm not being pessimistic, but it's cyclical.
No, it's
realistic. It is realistic. It's like in business. It's things go up, things go down. We need to always constantly adjust. So that's what happens. And
now I know you deal with a lot of small business owners. And I know that 6 months to a year, most 60 to 65%. I don't have the figures in front of me, but they fail because I think they fail to plan for expenses.
It's about being undercapitalized. It's about launching your business and making sure that you have enough to sustain you.
But how do you find that number out, especially if you're someone like, say, myself? I'm not a business person. I am now, but I mean, when I started out, I never wanted to be in business. I wanted to be in show business, which is a different deal.
Yeah.
So in my own mind, I could never grasp, well, how much money do I need?
Yeah.
I know in acting, they say you should have 2 years set aside before you jump full time into acting. But if you're going to start a business, how do you come to that magic number of, well, I need so much before I can even launch the company?
Yeah. I think it's so important to reach out and get help. And I say this now as a person who started my business several years ago and knew all this stuff, but was I really jumping in and doing it? The reality was I had capital to sustain me for, 18, 19 months. But because of the cyclicality of our overall world, because of life happens and such, and we're expecting business to come in at a pace, and it doesn't necessarily, it's hard. It's like running into a glass wall and you hit your face and it hurts. So key is getting some help before you even launch into this. Really, really seeking out the wisdom of people who have gone down this path, people who are experts in this, whether it's the small business centers that are all around the state, the country, that have experts who can help you, whether it's just going to the bookstore, going to the library, finding a resource to say, how can I kind of project some of this? So stepping even further back and looking at what are your living expenses? What do you need every month just to make it? I mean, just to make it, to break even. Then what do you need? What's ideal? Okay, I'm paying the bills and I've got a little bit of cushion to put away for the rainy day or the opportunity. So it's a couple of different tiers you want to look at. Start with what your living expenses are. Start with what the expenses are for the business. What's it going to cost you each month to keep your doors open, whether that's a virtual door or a literal door?
And so that's where the experts come in, because sometimes you just don't realize.
Sometimes you just don't realize and you don't know. So if you do it in a vacuum, you're sure you're gonna run into a problem and have some issues. And therefore, that's how come we see the data where these businesses close up, because they just didn't know it was going to take that much. Or, I've got 6 months worth, but 8 months happens, and if I can just hold out for that additional 3 months, and it just doesn't work that way.
Well, what I do is, because when I jumped into this, I didn't have the nest egg that I probably should have, but also I'm super cheap. So all these expenses, I kind of knew the business because I worked for a speaker and had seen what they had done and all the mistakes that they had made, and also I had been with other small businesses before and seen all the mistakes they had made.
Right.
I was able to figure out what my needs were, but you tell me, because I've seen this backfire on a lot of people. What they do is they take all their money and pour it right back into the business, 100%, which is kind of dangerous, because I've seen companies and individuals get into major trouble, not only since this is coming out right at tax season, with the taxes, because they don't have any money to pay their taxes now, and they made so much money that their taxes are fairly high.
Right.
That there's no way they can get that check written. Because what I do is I take half of whatever I make and put it in the bank.
Exactly.
And give myself a refund.
Yeah. That's just the best advice someone gave to me. And they just said, if you can do that. And again, I got this.
Well, I have a wife too, so she's got a job. So it's not like.
And I'm grateful and thankful. I have a husband who's got a job and benefits and all those things. So I'm able to do this in up months and down months.
Yeah.
There's that buffer there. But the best advice was whatever I get, half goes, one place and the other half is tucked away because the tax man cometh, as I like to say. Yeah. And you got to be prepared for that. And if not, it's ugly. It's ugly and it's stressful, and that's not good.
Yeah, I know, because like I said, I've seen people get destroyed by taxes, and that's one of the things I tell small business owners right away is there's that is true. It is death in taxes because you cannot pay Sears. Let's say we didn't pay Sears, which I may or may not have done. With
just
that,
between us,
with that original credit card 20-something years ago. But if you don't pay Sears, all they do is call you up
and hassle you.
And even then, Sears, I did get collections from Sears when I was like 24, and they're not really that mean. They're like, we want your money. You owe us money. I don't have it.
Okay,
we'll call you next week.
You think you will next week?
I thought they're like, we're going to send some guys over and they're going to, bust your knees up.
Break you up.
But the IRS can seize property.
Yeah,
they can garnish
put
wages.
Liens on things. They can show up at your house and different things. And so that is an area where, again, where are you going to get that insight and that knowledge? I've got this great idea, run this business, and let me just launch out here and jump without getting any information. So one of the biggest things I try to stress for business owners, take the time, step away from the glass long enough and the excitement and enthusiasm of this new venture to get the information that you need. And these small business centers, people who've been in business, and I don't get anything. I'm not trying to push it. I'm just saying it's free. It's out there. It's a resource. Reach out. Get the information. They're going to tell you. I continue to leverage the resources of this network of offices around the country. I pick up the phone and call. They give me answers, information. And my only regret is that I didn't jump on that resource earlier. So they can tell you make suggestions about taxes, what you need to capitalize your business, where you can go, folks who can sit with you, business plans, give you other templates and ideas for those things. So reach out and touch somebody who has the info.
And make sure they actually are successful.
Not just here's a template and somebody thinks they're doing it.
I hear this term called a serial entrepreneur, which makes, in my mind, unless they're millionaires, which most of them are not, a serial entrepreneur means they are a continuous failure. They have done over and over again, and they may have had some success, but they couldn't carry it to the finish line, and they ended up being bankrupt at the end. Because I know a friend of mine who's made a lot of money in real estate in Florida, but again, he invested it all back into his company, and so when the real estate went in the toilet, he now is in a position where he can't possibly pay the taxes on the $100,000, $150,000 he made, because he's only making $50 now because of the job he's got. So one of the things I know you talk about is that I'm not sure that I get this, because it's about IRS, and I should know more because my wife's stepfather and my wife's mother both worked for the IRS. And my wife was born on April 15th. Ooh. So I should know some of this IRS stuff.
I'm thinking you should. It just happens in your family.
Well, it's good that they can take a look at the taxes and see if I'm doing anything wrong, so I don't get audited. But the whole tax refund situation, because I keep hearing you don't want to give them your money. That's money you could be using. But if you don't know the system, can't you get into a trap of, oh my God, now I do owe? And I wasn't prepared for that?
Yeah, and it's especially for those who are employed somewhere, and so they can go to their HR department and fill out the W-4 and put the number of people, exemptions, those that they want to claim. And there's some adjusting you can do, whereby you withhold for more, so there's less taken out throughout the year of your paycheck. And then when you want to time all this right or make some adjustments, so when it's April 15th this year, the 18th, what you're paying, what you owe, when you hit the button on the system, if you're doing it yourself or you're at a person who's filing your taxes for you, when you hit the button, it's as close to zero as possible. That's the bottom line objective across the board. So whether throughout the year you make some adjustments, and that's a piece of advice somebody gave me so many years ago, and I never really thought that was something that you were able to do. If your family is one kid and husband and wife, you put that 3 down and that's it. That's that's carved in stone.
It's locked in, but
locked
it's not.
in, but in reality, it's not. And that was so many years ago, the first time I was even exposed to this idea that some people, claim 10 and they don't have 10 kids at their house. Well, it's not that. It's so that they can get more of the money back during the course of the year. They might adjust it downward some other time as it gets closer. Just what is it that you need? The key is you don't want to pay more than is necessary. This idea that people get this great big refund checked around springtime, I think you've given this loan to the government for all these months. They're not paying you interest back on it. So why not try to make sure that your exemptions, what you're withholding, is at the accurate level? And on the back of that sheet, there's a little calculator where all of us can fill it out and figure out what is best. Again, if you're employed, you're working somewhere, you can do that. Getting a big refund check is not a reason to celebrate and go woohoo, because are you overpaying throughout the year?
Well, and I think the timing situation is key, because what happens is a lot of people, they do it and then they forget about it. I mean, it's one of those things that you've got to be on top on, and I think that's where the danger is because I don't think a lot of people are in that mode where they're writing down notes and it's like, oh, in November I need to, make this adjustment. Mm-hmm. I know when my wife and I got married, I guess it's going to be about 8 years ago now. Mm-hmm. She, to pay for our wedding, I know that she changed some of our status.
Right, just to get more money back in that paycheck.
And so we'd have more available. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then I think as soon as we got back, she made the adjustments again. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Again, I don't know how that ended up at the end of the year. So that's the key. I always worry about screwing things up. So when at the end of the year, now I'm owing Uncle Sam. Not that I don't mind paying my taxes. I'm not one of these people who are upset with the tax system. Yeah. It's not fair to some degree to a lot of people, but it's also I don't the more taxes I'm paying, that means the more money I'm making. Mm-hmm, I would love to be up in that top 2%, and then I would definitely give back. If they're like, well, if you're making over $250,000, we need to tax you more than the average person. Okay for me. Uh-huh. I mean, I understand there's people who don't believe that they should be everyone could pay equal, but I don't. I also know that like GE just got a refund of $317 billion.
Crazy.
They didn't pay a dime.
Yeah.
So as just a small business person, how dangerous can it be as far as the tax situation? As far as like myself, I'm not in a stable money situation. Neither are you. Where we get certain months where we're really busy.
Right. We get paid. I get paid when I speak or when I'm consulting or teaching, and if not, then I don't get paid. So it's cyclical.
Yeah. So for people like us who are self-employed, what would you consider not necessarily across the board strategy, but a good strategy for someone who works and that the money's not consistent, so they can do this? They can kind of make sure that they don't screw themselves when tax time comes around.
And whether it's the self-employed or again individuals, this strategy it's not a new thing, but it makes sense and it works. So just like when you're starting your business, making sure that you're capitalized as best you can, and we can't plan for everything, but as best you can be capitalized. I always say to people, you want to shoot for having this cushion of rainy day or opportunity money, because there are months when the opportunities aren't there. And then there are other times. December and January. And other times, like I've been on the road the last 3 weeks, literally. I've spoken, 15 business days. I've been up and in front of an audience 12 of those days out of the last 15, which is great. Okay. Then I've got some free time coming up. So what do I need to do to weather this? It's put aside 3 to 6 months on the low end. Ideally, 3 to 8 months of whatever the committed expenses are for my business. So during those downtimes, and if there's some tax stuff, so 2 things we've talked about. You get paid, you get your 1099s, half of that, socked away in an account. So I get paid for speaking last week, whatever that is, half over here that I can invest, pay myself with, pay my expenses for the business, half that's in this account that never should be touched until it is tax season. And then having this money aside for those expenses when the business is ebbing versus flowing. And then I'm able to live and contribute to my family, do what I need to do. And the challenge is, as you said, sometimes we want to put everything back into the business. Sometimes it's been lean, so we want to pull everything and just use it and catch up and do some things we need to do. So it can be really hard. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of focus. But those are things that I think make sense for folks.
So you grew up in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Which, I don't see you in Minneapolis. I've been in Minneapolis before. And
most folks don't see black people in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Black people in Minneapolis? Are you kidding me?
I guess the Vikings were playing. I don't know. I didn't see, when I went to Minneapolis, I didn't see one.
And
I was
cold
like,
and we all stay in.
Okay. Good to know. I guess that's why they're all in the South, supposedly.
A lot of black folks there.
But I didn't realize. So, did you go to college? Did you?
Yes, I did. I grew up right in North Minneapolis. Was born in Duluth, which is way north.
Oh, that's way north.
Yeah, way north. And there was an active Air Force base there. My mother had migrated from the South. So had my father. He was in the Air Force. They met and married, and we lived there for a bit. Moved to Cleveland, and then settled in Minneapolis. So went to grade school, did everything there. University of Minnesota is where I attended.
Was that a Golden Gopher?
Business, Golden Gopher. I don't know the song, so
I don't. That's okay.
You don't. Good. Okay.
I don't know the song either.
Good.
And nor do I really want to hear a song about gophers.
You don't want to hear it. The fights.
Yeah, I don't do the.
We won't do that this time around. So graduated from there and started working. I really only had 3 jobs. I worked at a bank, what was then First Banks. It's now U.S. Banks. And while I was in school, worked as a teller, a student loan collector, a mortgage loan collector. Worked a lot, put myself through school basically, and then after graduating became a loan officer. I'm sorry, not a loan officer, a corporate cash management officer at the bank. Was one of the youngest officers ever at the bank, and you have to be appointed, so that was pretty cool. Left there and went to Xerox. I had interned at Xerox as a systems rep while in college, and so they had made some offers, but I wasn't interested in going back there, and then did because I really wanted to be selling. I thought I was Miss Superstar salesperson, but I knew the second day I was an employee, a full-time employee there, unlike being an intern, I knew that was not what I wanted to do. I was more of a conceptual person, giving me ideas and thoughts to be able to share with people, and that was more important to me. That was more motivating to me. I had more passion about that than saying, here's my copier, do you want mine or do you want somebody else's? Plus, I felt like it was bait and switch. They said my title was a systems sales rep. Systems sounded cooler.
Larger,
more impressive.
Like you're selling multiple systems. You're selling a system.
System. It was a system, but we were all copier reps.
Yeah, just a copier rep.
We were copier reps.
It's like being a VP at a bank. Everyone's a VP.
Everybody's a VP at a bank. We were all copier reps. It's just, was your goal more copiers or fewer copiers and blah, blah, blah. So hated that, and it was not a day too soon when a headhunter found me because I had a banking experience and great sales experience, and they said, hey, we've got an offer at American Express, and I was out of there so quick, and that began a 20-year career, which was pretty cool.
Now, see, this is the thing, that's why I wanted to bring this up, because you did work with American Express, and they're like a credit card. Well, they are a credit card, but they're more of a, you got to pay us at the end of the month situation.
It's a charge card. That's where people, I think, get confused. Mm-hmm. They have multiple products at this point, but the original product was a charge card. You charge, you pay. You charge, you pay. There was nothing revolving. And so only in recent years, recent being the last 20 years, was that revolving feature. So they'd have their Optima and the different pieces.
Yeah, and I guess Blue is the...
Blue, exactly.
Because I've seen a lot of changes with American Express over the last 4 or 5 years, because they've been hit pretty hard.
Oh, as with all.
But I saw that you said you're on your bio you're a spokesperson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
part
of one of my roles.
So you and Jerry Seinfeld.
No, it was different. I was not Jerry, and definitely not being compensated as Jerry and others were, but as a spokesperson for the asset management side of the business. So I was on the investment side. I started on the card side of the business, migrated over to traveler's checks and the banking side, then got to investments, and spokesperson for the company. So anything related to investments for what was then American Express Financial Advisors, now Ameriprise. There were myself and another gentleman, and we traipsed the country and kind of told the American Express asset management story. Did a lot of speaking, done a lot of media, so CNN and radio tours and all those things. So it was really, really cool. I was paid to just go and speak. That's all I did.
And that is where the seed of your current career started.
Yeah, I think the seed started way back when I was young. My mother told me I used to gather the neighbor kids into our living room, and I'd show them little movies, those little crank it out, see and show movies, and I'd charge them a couple pennies, and they'd come every week and I'd show the same movie and kind of give the same talk. She said, you've been doing this for years. And in college, I wanted to major in theater, and my mom said, cross that out. You gotta major in something where you can get a real job.
You gotta make money.
Gotta make money. And so I crossed it off, but in my heart, I swear today, if I hit the lotto, that 300 and some mil all those people got, I would forget about speaking. I go try to audition for a soap opera and be on daytime.
Days of Our Lives? Is that the one you like?
All my children. I don't watch it. I haven't seen it in like a million years.
Sure. She's saying that for you. She's got a DVR.
I have not. I've not seen it.
In fact, I'm telling you, you're probably going to like, my stories are on. I got to go. My grandmother did the same thing. Shut up. My stories are on.
But the crazy thing is you can get reacclimated so quickly. I swear I've not seen a soap opera in 25 years.
Yeah, but if you sit down, it's the same thing.
Down,
people are sleeping with each other and people are trying to kill each other.
Married and they're, somebody's got 5 personalities. So I'm sure I could get looped back in pretty quickly. But I'm saying I'd go be on Broadway. I'd go do something that allowed me to. I don't sing. I don't dance too well, but that's what is I think always been the juice that's in me. And all I wanted to do was find some kind of job where I could make enough to help my family. That was the only motivation. And I always like to talk. And
that's a good motivation. A lot of people have these goofy motivations that actually is a detriment to the family.
Yeah.
So at least you had more noble.
I don't know that it was more noble. It was just, I see the struggle, I see the challenge, and something's got to be better. So whatever I can do to help my family, that was the motivation. And sales happened into that. I just was looking for where am I going to make most money. Somebody said, you know what, if you can sell something, you can make money. And that began this journey of being in roles where I was able to talk and present and share. And then it led to the spokesperson role, which was cool, which I loved all that I was doing. The only downside was travel. One week I remember getting on a plane in Houston, flying to Chicago, leaving there speaking, going to Martha's Vineyard, leaving there going to L.A., and then back in Houston, all in a 5-day span.
Martha's Vineyard is the toughest one because you can't fly into Martha's. You gotta.
And that plane, I thought I was going to die. I held on to the back of that seat in front of me for dear life.
Oh, what was it? Like a 7-seater prop plane?
Oh yeah, it was so tiny. The captain was in the front, and he just turns around to give the instructions.
Yeah.
Hello, ladies and
Draws
gentlemen.
the curtain back.
Yeah, there was no curtain. He just turned around and talked over his shoulder, and he said, "The 2 exits are the one you came in, and this door up here by me."
Or if anything breaks off, go through the hole.
Yeah, he just went, hang on, and we weaved and bobbed the whole time. It was crazy. So.
Well, I noticed that what they do is it seems weird, but I guess those are less difficult to fly. So they get the younger pilots. They start them off on these regional things.
I bet.
And because I remember going to Farmington, New Mexico, New Mexico, which is tiny airport. And so I got a guy grabs my bags, and he runs them out. And because there's only 9 of us getting on this plane.
Uh-huh.
And so I see him loading up. And then I see him put on sunglasses. He's the co-pilot. He's like 14 years old. The pilot looked like 16 years old.
Oh boy.
And it's like, oh, this is great. So they hired the local boys to fly us to Denver. And the whole time it was just shaking. It was like I hate planes in general, which is weird because of the business we're in, but I hate the smaller, the worse ones they get. And they shake, and I'm like, we're all going to die. And then at one point the plane like dropped and then veered left. And he made his only announcement, and that's, sorry about that. So I can understand the travel must have been, so how many dates maybe a year you were doing with American Express?
That was my job, to speak every day. So 6 years solid. When I moved here to Houston, I'd leave on a Monday, come back on a Thursday, and I was speaking.
4 cities a week?
At least 3. 2 to 3 cities, anywhere from 2 to 4 cities.
Say 150 to 200.
Easily,
man.
Easily. That's what my job was. And so then I'd get a call. Okay, go to a local studio, and there's something we need to link up to you and have a discussion with Ali Bashir. I'm saying his name wrong, from CNN, and great, that's what I would do. And then get on a plane and come back home and see where I was supposed to go the next week. So it was great. It was really, really a high profile role. Loved it. I had no regrets. The only reason I'm still not there, they spun off and became Ameriprise. And so my role, our whole division was just being
all dismantled.
Shook up dismantled. And so everybody in that group is off somewhere doing something different. And they said, you can apply for something else. And I thought, it's been 20 years. I'm ready to stretch my wings. I want to give this a try. And sat back, did nothing for a while, and then in earnest got started. So,
well, in our last few moments, we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to talk about what you're doing right now.
Right now, I'm out speaking and really talking to people about moving on from where you are. I try to touch on 3 different areas: mindsets, your money, and also your motivation, what's getting you to move forward and do things that you need to in your life. So I'm still leveraging that financial background, but also just some things. I've been doing a lot of motivational speaking these last couple of years. It's been interesting.
I think the financial thing is going to be, especially now, is got to be so important.
Well, and it has, and it continues to be this undercurrent, and so it's always there. But these last 2 years, I think there was so much like, what do you do about your money? And people just went, enough already. I get it. I got to manage this better. But now, motivate me, inspire me. So I've been hired to speak to so many awesome groups, leadership stuff, personal accountability. So that's what I've been doing. Love it. Still do a lot of workshops and breakouts, and those have been going good.
And where can people find you?
You can find me online, charlottestallings.com, and would love to hear from you. So hit me there.
And you always feel free to send as much money or checks as you want to Charlotte.
Yeah, I absolutely am always open to those too.
I want to thank Charlotte for being on the show. Really appreciate it. It's this week, tax week. Make sure you have your taxes filed by April 18th this year. You can always email me at Craig@SpeakerCraigPrice.com. Go to the website, RealityCheckPodcast.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Join the RSS feed. Sign up at iTunes. All that good stuff. Anytime you need us, RealityCheckPodcast.com.